Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we are going to be looking back at Mark Rosewater's teaser. He always releases this teaser before a set's preview season, and we get to try to guess what kind of cards are going to be in the set, but no one really ever goes back and look back at what he was talking about. So in this video, let's just go back, review the teaser article, see what cards he was talking about. Maybe that will make us better at predicting cards in the future, because so far I'm pretty bad at it. My predictions are never accurate. You might say I suck at it, because it's a vampire set. Right, anyway, so first off, we had a bunch of counters. There's not much to say here. They're just flavorful names for generic counters. Next we have a popular and powerful creature card from an Innistrad set gets reprinted. I didn't really have too much of a guess here. I assumed obviously Snapcaster Mage would be pretty cool, right? Like a valuable card, but it ended up being Thalia, which isn't the most valuable card. It's kind of it's okay, but it is a very powerful and a great card for standard, great for taxes style decks, great for creature-based aggro decks, makes all the removal spells your opponent is playing more expensive, makes board sweepers more expensive. Also, the art is super cool. Really like this art. It's really dark, which I kind of like. Next, we have a new artifact token along the lines of Clue, Food, and Treasure. I thought maybe it would be a token that could be cracked for a +1/+1 counter maybe, but it ended up being blood tokens. These are artifact tokens kind of like Clue tokens, but instead of drawing a card, you discard and then draw. Technically, you discard as part of the activation cost and you sacrifice draw. So it's reasonable for vampires because it enables madness, that lets you loot. It's cheaper, right? It only costs 1 instead of 2 for clues. So yeah, blood tokens, that's the new token. Don't know if these are going to be regular in Magic or if it's just going to be whenever there's vampires in a set, we'll have blood tokens, or it could just be specific to the set, but maybe blood tokens are a new regular thing in Magic. Next, we have a card that makes red dragon illusion creature tokens with flying and haste. So my best guess is I compared this to the Kaldheim card that has boast, right? It's going to be something that can technically put dragons in play, but it'll be expensive, right? Something like this. And it ended up being better than I thought. It is Mana Form Hellkite. It's 4 mana 4/4 flyer. Whenever you cast non-creatures, you get an XX red dragon illusion creature, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast it. So if you cast a 3 mana spell, you get a 3/3 red flying dragon. It does get exiled at end of turn, which is fantastic because it's not obscenely powerful, but in a spell slinging deck, you just get a bunch of dragons, and it's already on a 4 mana 4/4 flyer, which is not bad at all. Next, we have a mechanic that first appeared as a faction mechanic. So I figured this would be Bloodthirst. Bloodthirst was a Gruul faction mechanic in Ravnica, but it ended up being Exploit. I did not expect that. Exploit, basically when you cast a creature with Exploit, you can sacrifice another creature and then you get some kind of effect, and it's optional, right? So Overcharged Amalgam, you can just play it as a 4 mana 3/3 flash flyer, flash it in as a surprise blocker, flash it in at end of turn. But if you have something you don't care about, you can sacrifice something and counter a spell. So that's pretty cool. Great with decaying zombie tokens, right? Because they're going to get sacrificed anyway. So pretty cool. And this was a faction mechanic in Khans of Tarkir. So there you go. Accurate. Next, we have a new legendary creature card that combines 2 characters that previously each had their own legendary card. So my guess here was, it seemed obvious, it was going to be the bride and groom. We knew this was a vampire wedding set, and we knew that Olivia was going to be the bride. So whoever the groom is, I just figured it'd be Olivia and so as a card similar to these cards, right? I figured it'd be something like this, but with the bride and groom. Wrong. It was Helena and Elena, partners. So these were originally, that's the name says, partners. These were commander partners and commander. So if you play commander, you might be familiar with these two, and now they are in standard as a single card. So there you go. Not what I expected. Next, we have a new card that lets you cast certain cards off the top of your library. Didn't really have a prediction here because it's pretty self-explanatory, right? This is something we see with every set. Pretty much every set has a card that can cast stuff off top, and we actually got 2 of them. We got Chandra, Dress to Kill, and Cemetery Illuminator. So Chandra, her +1 lets you exile the top card. If it's red, you can cast it. So not too overpowered because it can't play lands. It has to be red spells. It's only really good in mono red. It's not going to be very reliable and blue-red or Jeskai control decks. It's more of a like very burn-focused card, so not bad. Cemetery Illuminator, 3 mana, 2/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you exile a card from your graveyard, and then you can cast stuff off the top of your library if it shares a type. So like if you exile a creature, you can cast creatures off the top. If you exile an instant, you can cast instants, and of course every time it attacks, you can exile another card to have access to more card types. So not bad actually, kind of cool. So you have 2 cards that can cast stuff off the top of the library. Next we have a new mechanic, which is a mirror of an already existing mechanic. My guess was something along the lines of like Spectacle. So Spectacle gets the cost reduced based on whether or not the opponent lost life. So that may be like an inverse of Spectacle where it reduces the cost if you've gained life. But out of nowhere, it was actually training, not what I expect. So training says when this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So like Torrens, for example, 3 mana, 2/2. If it attacks with a bigger creature, it gets a +1/+1 counter. And this is the inverse or the mirror of Mentor. Mentor being if it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on a smaller creature. So Mentor puts counters on smaller creatures. Training gets counters if there's a bigger creature attacking. That's the idea there. So a mirror of an already existing mechanic, not what I expected at all. Next we have a legendary character returns, but now as a vampire. I really just pointed out, because I didn't have a guess here, I just pointed out that it says character, not creature, which I guess it makes sense. They don't like to call their humans creatures outside of the mechanics of the game, so they just said character. But I said, hey, maybe it's a planeswalker that comes back as a vampire. But most people predicted Odric. That was the most common prediction I saw, and everyone was right. It's Odric. Odric, blood cursed. He cares about abilities like before, but now he produces blood tokens based on all those abilities. So that's the idea there. Next, we had a collection of just rules text, right? This is just literal text that's on a card. We had choose a number between 0 and 13. Didn't have much of a guess here because, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It could be anything, and it ended up being way more interesting than I expected. It is by invitation only. This is a board sweeper, a 5 mana, blow up the board type of card, but you choose a number between 0 and 13, and then each player sacrifices that many creatures. So generally speaking, it's going to blow up the board. I mean, occasionally if someone's going super wide with tokens, it doesn't work, but generally blows up the board. And if you have more creatures, then you can, save a few of your creatures, right? Like if you have 5 creatures and the opponent has 3, you choose 3. They sacrifice all their creatures, you get to keep 2. So kind of a, not necessarily one-sided board sweeper, but a board sweeper where if you're going wide, you can actually save some of your creatures, some of your best creatures. So actually kind of cool, kind of a cool card. Next we have with mana value less than or equal to the number of vampires you control. My guess here was that it was going to be a removal spell, like if you have 5 vampires, you can kill 5 drops. You have 7 vampires, you can kill 7 drops or below. Wrong. It was dominating vampire, 3 mana, 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you get to gain control of a creature with mana value less than your vampire count. Untap it, gains haste. It's until end of turn, but it's pretty powerful, right? Like a 3 mana, 3/3, steal a creature for a turn. Not bad. I mean, people pay 3 for that kind of effect already anyway, and now you get a 3/3 out of it as well, so long as you're in tribal vampire, so that's kind of cool. Next we have, if it's red, you may cast it this turn. I got this one right. I did get some things right. My best guess was this was going to be the same card from earlier that said you may cast the top card. So I just figured, yep, whatever it is, it's going to look at the top card. If it's red, you can cast it. And yep, it was Chandra, as we saw earlier. Exile the top card. If it's red, you can cast it. So those two things were linked, and I guessed that correctly at least. I got something, guys. Next we have zombies you control have flying. Not much to say here. Pretty self-explanatory. Didn't have a guess because what is there to guess? But it's Girolf, Visionary Stitcher, 3 mana, 1/4, gives your zombies flying. Can also sacrifice non-token creatures to create zombies. So if you have a not zombie and you want it to be a zombie, you can zombify it basically. Next we have at the beginning of your upkeep, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. My guess here, we've seen stuff like this before, like with Desecration Demon, like an undercosted big threat but the drawback is the opponent can constantly sacrifice creatures to keep it in check by tapping it. I figured it would be something like that. Not quite. It's Innocent Traveler and Malicious Invader. It's a flip card, which seems kind of bad. It's a 4-mana 1/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, the opponent can sacrifice something, and if they don't, then you flip it. But even when you flip it, it's just a 3/3 flyer. At best, it's a 5/3 flyer that you paid 4 mana for. So it's like, even if it flips, it's a 4-mana 5/3 flyer, right? So it's not like exceptionally good. I don't know, seems kind of mediocre. It is just an uncommon though. So yeah, it's just a weird design, I think, but that's the card. Next we have Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent. So my only real guess here was that it wasn't going to be something that like pumped those creatures or anything, because it would be plural, right? Like if it was like a lord, it would say Krakens, Leviathans. Because it's singular, I figured it'd be something that would like trigger like whenever you play a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, something like that. I was sort of close. It's Runo, Stormkirk, and the flip side really is Crothus, Lord of the Deep, which is where the text comes from. Basically, when it attacks, you create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of something else that's attacking, and then if that creature is a Kraken and a Leviathan or whatnot, you create 2 of those tokens instead, so you don't have to play those creature types, you just get an extra token if you do. So yeah, not what I expected. Also just kind of a cool card, very Cthulhu-esque, which I kind of like, very cool. Next we have twice that many tokens instead. So this is a pretty standard thing, stuff that doubles tokens or counters or whatnot. However, I did make a guess that maybe it would be a reprint of Parallel Lives. Parallel Lives is a $45 card in USD right now. It's a very expensive card, and it's an Innistrad card, so surely this is a great opportunity to reprint this. It's the exact text. It puts twice that many tokens onto the battlefield instead. Exactly the text, a card that desperately needs reprinted, but it's not. It's Kaya Geist Hunter, which is probably fine. I don't think it's a terrible card, but as a token doubler, not very good. The -2 says until end of turn, if you create a token, you create twice that many instead. So like in the right deck, it's probably okay, but it's not like this super exciting token doubling card. It's like you put it in a card that maybe has some token generation, and maybe that's relevant every once in a while. I think the main draw here is the plus ability though. So it's just not a reprint of Parallel Lives, which is just too bad. Next we have whenever a human you control dies. So not much to say here. I didn't have a prediction because I don't know, it's just gonna be something that triggers when stuff dies, but it's a Lay to Rest, which lets you draw a card when humans die. Not much to say there. Next we have equal to the number of permanents you control that are spirits or enchantments. So once again, I didn't have a guess because, I mean, this could literally be anything. It is interesting that spirits or enchantments are connected though. That was my only comment here, but this ended up being Catilda, which has power and toughness equal to the number of spirits and enchantments you control. And the reason these are linked is because spirits in this set, when they die, they disturb, like last set, like in Midnight Hunt, but now they disturb into auras. So we have this kind of link between spirits and enchantments for this set. Next we have then if you control exactly 13 permanents, and this ended up being Stenzia Uprising, which is interesting. So it's a 4-mana enchantment, and at the beginning of your end step, every single turn, you get a 1/1 red human creature token. So that's not bad, right? It just sits on the battlefield, puts all these tokens out. They're only 1/1s. It does cost 4, so it's like, it's kind of whatever. But then if you have exactly 13 permanents, which, you know, this is producing tokens, so that helps you get there, you get sacrifice it, and it does 7 damage, which also isn't super exciting considering you have to pay 4 mana for it, and it takes forever, and you have to sacrifice your enchantment that is producing tokens. But yeah, it's interesting. Maybe good in draft or something, probably. And then finally we have just a giant list of creatures. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the Human Ranger Werewolf was Oakshade Stalker. The Angel Soldier was Angelic Quartermaster, which puts out +1/+1 counters. The Zombie Scorpion was Fell Stinger, and this card actually seems kind of insane. 3 mana, 3/2 with that touch, already good, and you can exploit a creature to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Really good for sacrificing like Eye Twitch and stuff, so that's kind of cool. Next we have Loom Egg. It's a 3 mana 0/4, and I thought this was going to be like Smoldering Egg, but actually this needs to be sacrificed. You have to sacrifice it, and if you can't sacrifice it, it flips into a 4/4. Not that exciting. I guess the use here. The point of this is to play it with exploit, right? Play exploit creatures, you sacrifice this, you get a 4/4, but not too exciting, I don't think. The Eye Horror is Revealing Eye, which is on the flip side of Concealing Curtains. 1 mana 0/4 with Defender because it's a wall, but if you pay 3, it flips into a 3/4 with Menace that will make the opponent discard a card, but they do get to draw a card, so mediocre. I don't know, maybe it's good, but it seems kind of like whatever. And then we have the legends, the commanders. These are the legendary creatures. The Human Peasant is Old Rutstein. 3 mana 1/4. It cares about self-milling. When you mill land, you get treasure tokens. When you mill creatures, you get insect tokens, so on and so forth. The Spirit Warlock is Catilda, which we saw earlier, has power and toughness equal to their spirit and enchantment count. The Slug Horror is Toxrill the Corrosive, which will put out slime counters, and slimed creatures get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. And then when creatures with slime counters die, you get 1/1 slug tokens. So it just basically tries to make everything else on the board small while pumping out 1/1 tokens. The Kraken Horror is Crothus, which we saw earlier. And the 2 new Vampire Nobles, of course, are the Bride and Groom. We have Olivia, Crimson Bride, and Edgar, Charmed Groom. Those are your new Vampire Nobles. So there you go, guys. My predictions were not exceptionally great. I got like a couple right, not great, but there you go. It's always fun to go back and look at these. I think most people move on after preview season. I think most people move on like a day after this article is released, but it's kind of fun to look back, see how horrendously inaccurate everyone's predictions were, and mine were pretty bad. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.